Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you.
So that is awesome. Like about half of you were on B, the other half weren't, but that's, hey, A, listen, A for effort. That's awesome. I don't know how you can listen to that song and not just sort of get a smile and watching the Minions. Everybody loves Minions. But we are kicking off this series, obviously, called the Happiness Challenge. And we want to look at what happiness is all about, how to find true, lasting happiness. I don't know of anybody that I've ever met that would say, you know what, I really don't want to be happier or live a more joy-filled life, right? I don't think there's anybody who doesn't want to understand better how to do this. Now, happiness is I don't know if you're aware of this, it is a hot topic these days. So many books being published. The one that seemed to kick off this craze of publishing books about how to be happier is a lady named Gretchen Rubin. And she wrote a book a few years ago called The Happiness Project. She decided in her life that she just wasn't happy. She wasn't joyful. And so she made a decision to set out for a year and to explore every aspect of how she could be happier. After that book came out, there was all kinds of other books. There's a book by Carol Graham, which is the very sleep-inducing title of Adaptation Amidst Prosperity and Adversity, Insights from Happiness Studies Around the World. So that's a little light bedtime reading for you there. She published another book called The Pursuit of Happiness, an Economy of Well-Being. And that's what we're talking here about. We're talking about well-being. And of course, as Americans, right, we sort of have a special right to happiness. Isn't that correct? This is something that's built right into our Declaration of Independence, right? That they wrote, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of what? Happiness, right? It is our God-given right to pursue happiness as American citizens. Now, obviously, the Bible has a lot to say about this as well. God does not exist solely to make us happy and prosperous and things like we normally think of it, but God does want his people to be joyful, to be people of peace, and to be people of happiness as it's properly understood. So the Bible says many things, and we'll be looking in depth at many of these over the next 3 weeks. But the one that comes to mind is the Apostle Paul writing to the church in Philippi from prison. And he tells them, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say, rejoice. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, well, Chris, I don't think that the word happy is anywhere in the Bible. And you are correct that the word happy does not appear in most translations of the Bible. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But it does talk about how we are to be joyous people. The word that the world uses for that often is happy, and so that's the word that we're using. So in spite of the fact that as Americans, this is our unalienable right to pursue happiness, despite happy songs, and we'll be hearing a few more of them over the weeks, despite all of this, for some reason in America, we have a problem with this. Studies have been done, very intense academic longitudinal studies have been done that show that among the world, the United States ranks usually in the bottom half, if not the bottom 10th in terms of nations that would be happy. They use a lot of factors to determine this, but they always say the same thing. Every year there's something published called the World Happiness Report. And it looks at a bunch of different metrics, but it usually seems that America is somewhere around the bottom. Now, given the fact that at least half, if not over half of Americans would say that they are Christians. Now, I'm not saying that they regularly attend church or read their Bibles, or I'm not saying how committed they are, but if half of Americans would say that I am a Christian, and yet as a nation, we fall in the bottom of nations that seem to be happy or joyous or a sense of well-being, then there's got to be some kind of disconnect there. And so we want to explore this idea of how can I be more happy, or should I be more happy? And we're going to do this in a variety of ways over the weeks, but today I wanted to talk about the number one reason why most people, maybe not all, but why most people are unhappy. And it's because they have a dry mouth. So, partly this is, and again, this might not apply to everybody, but I promise you that many things in this series will resonate with you. And this may not apply to everybody, but I think that the number one reason why many people don't find joy or happiness in life is because of sort of two different versions of our lives that we sort of imagine in our heads or experience. Now, one of these versions of our life would be what I'm going to call moments of incredible awesomeness, or the psychologist Abraham Maslow called them peak experiences. These are the moments, the moments that we share in pictures on our Facebook or our Instagram. These are the days that maybe you graduated from college, or you sent a kid off to college, or you finally went on your dream vacation. Maybe it's a personal accomplishment. You got a promotion or a raise, and all kinds of things. These are peak experiences. These are mountaintop experiences. These are moments of incredible awesomeness. And what we would like is for our lives to be a continual jump from one peak to the next, right? Like we want our lives always to be like that. However, there are in fact two different versions of our lives. There are those incredible moments of awesomeness, and then there's the other version. And we'll call this aspect of our lives the monotonous daily grind. This is the version of our lives that we live 98 or 99% of the time. This is the part of our lives, the version of our lives that nobody posts online afterwards. And I don't know how you might define this, but it kind of comes home to me one day when I'm cleaning out our cat litter box. And as usual, I waited too long, and so I'm toting this garbage bag that has far too much stuff in it, and I'm going up the basement steps to take it to the garage, to the garbage, and guess what happens? It busts all over God's creation. Like it was just a mess, right? So maybe that's you, or it's the flooded basement, or maybe it's the car that won't start, or I don't know what it might be, but it's just the normal cycle of life. We wake up, we go to work, we come home, we eat dinner, we maybe help the kids with homework, then we go to bed, then we get up, and we do it all over again. Now understand that there is nothing necessarily wrong with a monotonous daily grind, except that once we have had these incredible peak experiences, these moments of awesomeness, these adrenaline-inducing times where man, this is the best thing ever, it kind of affects us. Because then we don't want just normal daily grind. We want more awesome. We want more peak experiences. And the book of Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament talks about life, and the writer of Ecclesiastes, Solomon, would say that life is just kind of one repetitive thing. It's just the same thing over and over and over and over again. We don't want that. We want continual, warm, fuzzy tingles, peak experiences, mountaintop experiences, because hey, like everybody else on Facebook's having them. Like, if you look, everybody's having a better time than I am. But they're not putting their 98% everyday life on there, right? So in 1902, a guy named William James wrote this really groundbreaking study, and it applies even today, though it's that old. He called it the varieties of religious experience. And in that study, William James observed this. He said, if we were to ask the question, what is human life's chief concern? One of the answers we should receive would be its happiness. How to gain, how to keep, how to recover happiness is, in fact, for most men at all times, the secret motive of all that they do and all that they're willing to endure. In other words, according to James, once we get that state of happiness, once we experience these moments of incredible awesomeness, we become sort of addicted to them. And we think that that's what life has to be, all the time, continual. And nothing is more important, nothing becomes more important to us as much as finding more peak experiences like that. He says it's the secret motive of everything that we do in life. This endless, never-ending pursuit of the next hit of happiness. Now, you might be saying, well, that doesn't really describe me, but I really think it's probably more true than we would like to admit. You think about it for a moment. And I don't know what it might be, but think about something that you look forward to, like something that you really, really look forward to. You almost can't think of anything else. And then think about the time leading up to that. Maybe it's a vacation. I don't know what it might be. We're going to talk a lot about vacations and how they don't really make us happy. But think about the time leading up to that. And then think about when that thing, whatever it is, actually occurs. And then when it's over, and there's such a letdown. And we tend to just think about these things. We look forward to something because that means then we don't have to think about the not here and now that we're living in right now. And it's our monotonous daily grind. We can think about something else. We can plan something else. We can look forward to something else. There's going to be something else that's going to bring us happiness other than where we are right now and what we're doing right now. The number one reason that I think that most people, I know this describes me too often, number one reason most people are unhappy because they don't know how to find happiness in the daily, everyday grind of their lives. Constantly want to go from one peak experience to the next. Now, I understand, and there have been many studies have shown that this does differ between age groups. And so maybe this is more a mark of the younger generations. I don't know, because myself and those younger than myself have been just raised on sort of continual entertainment type of things. Many years ago, a guy named David Wells wrote a book called Amusing Ourselves to Death, or rather Neil Postman. And he was talking in 1990 about how we're just so amused to death, right? We have all these diversions, and like, what in the world would he say now if he were still alive? But we've got to find a way as God's people to find happiness or joy or life satisfaction when we're going through even the hard stuff of life. And so it's kind of a paradox. It is like something that doesn't make sense in theory, but it really does. The fact that the more that we pursue happiness, the more we pursue this feeling of the next peak experience, the more elusive it is. It doesn't seem like that would be the case, but it is. It's a paradox. And Jesus had a lot of these sort of paradoxes in his teaching. Jesus would say things like, whoever seeks to find his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me will find it. He said, whoever seeks to be first will be last, and whoever is last will be first. These sort of paradoxes that they don't really make sense when you think about them, but if you just think about how life really works, it's kind of true. And so it may not make sense, but our all-out pursuit and obsession with being happy is just making us more unhappy. Blaise Pascal, another great thinker, wrote in a book called Pensies, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Because we need something out there to make us happy. We need something else rather than the Spirit of God living inside of us. And there are two words that maybe you find yourself saying from time to time. But there are two words that oftentimes people who are searching for happiness will say. And these two words are when and then. Some of the most dangerous words to joy are when and then. When my cancer is in remission, then I will be happy. When I'm married, then I will be happy. When my divorce is finalized, then I'll be happy. When I have children, then I will be happy. So when my children's behavior problems are fixed, then I will be happy. When I make enough money, then I will be happy. When I retire, then I will be happy. When I find something to do in retirement, then I will be happy. When and then. They're all future-oriented words. One of these days, something will come along that will make me happy. And so if the pursuit of happiness is what drives your life, your decisions, your priorities, you will have a hard time finding it according to the scriptures and what we're going to be talking about over the next couple of weeks. Now, I want you to know there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with these experiences that we have. You know, these are good things. They're gifts from God even. But they're to be enjoyed like a sunny day. When the sun comes out, that's awesome, enjoy it. But when it's not sunny, that's fine. Just life goes on. Some of you know that I'm the worst weather whiner. I'm getting better. But I just, I don't like winter. And so the last couple winters, if you've been around, you might remember me saying this, that I'm going to try really hard not to complain about winter. Like it's just weather. Quit being a weather whiner. Quit finding your joy in the fact that it's sunny and warm outside all the time. So last winter, I did pretty good till about December 24th, and then I did pretty good up until about February or March. Then I start to crack. But we have been conditioned in our society to let external factors dictate what only we can control. And that's our attitude, and that's our reaction, and that's our happiness and joy. So what we need to do is we need to create an approach to life that is dependent not upon one peak after another, but upon finding joy and happiness in everyday life. Again, the Apostle Paul, nearing the end of his life, he wrote these words from prison. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all, for the Lord is near, he said. You see, that is the secret of the happy, joyful life, that the Lord is near, that the Lord, the Holy Spirit, lives within us. And even though he was in prison, even though his world was coming to an end, he had been beaten, he had been flogged, he was horribly concerned and worried and anxious about the churches that he started. But he would say, in spite of all of that, rejoice in the Lord always. And I think sometimes that we might not even know how to be happy in life without these constant things to divert our attention and to help us to escape. Now, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be taking some deep dives into Scripture. I wanted to talk really briefly about Matthew chapter 5. Matthew chapter 5, we call it the Beatitudes. It's the beginning of what we call the Sermon on the Mount in the book of Matthew. It's the biography, one of the biographies of Jesus' life. And listen to what Jesus says, some more of these paradoxes. It doesn't seem like they should be right, but they are. So he says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Now, what we miss when we read that word blessed is that word comes from the Greek word makarios. And the best English translation of the word makarios is our English word of happy. You say, well, Chris, why don't they just put that in the Bible then? Well, the reason that the New International Version and every modern translation translates it blessed is because of the 1611 King James Version of the Bible. In 1611, King James published his version of the Bible, and in it was the word blessed. And so for many years, that was the most popular, in fact, it was almost the only English version of the Bible. And so people learned that. Know that. Many of you probably grew up and reading the King James Version. Some of you may still read it. But Bible publishers know that there are some passages of Scripture that are so popular that they're going to just translate it to what the King James said, right? People don't want to hear the 23rd Psalm, and they don't want to hear somebody say, the Lord is my shepherd, all my needs are met. No, that's not what people want to hear. They want to hear, the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want, right? And it's kind of the same thing here. But if we were going to translate this passage for 2018, it would be happy are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Happy are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Happy are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. What he's saying is you can be happy, you can be joyous in the everyday grind of life when bad stuff happens. It's kind of a paradox, but it's true. You know, it's not an automatic thing that becoming a Christian, you're going to be joyous and happy. It's not an automatic thing for most of us. It's something that we have to work on, that we have to learn, that we have to be challenged to improve on. But friends, it's so important that as God's people, above everybody else, that we ought to be happy, joyful people, a kind that comes from deep within us, not because we ourselves are so great, but because of the Spirit of God who lives within us. And there's a reason that Jesus had to teach people to do this, because it doesn't come naturally for a lot of us. So the happiness challenge. We're gonna challenge each other. And I'm challenging myself to learn to be happy, genuinely joyful, even when the garbage bag breaks and the cat stuff goes all over the place. Right? There was I think I told the story many years ago. We play softball out and back there. The church softball league uses our field, and they usually get an outhouse back there. And so one day, it's about this time of year, I was out in the pole barn, and I heard this guy singing. Like he was singing Christian. I don't remember what he was singing, but he was singing hymns. I'm like, where is that coming from? So I go out, and there's this guy there, and he's tending to the porta potties, getting ready to take it away, I guess. I'm like. You know, I just got to ask. I'm just curious, right? How are you so happy when you're... He goes, I know. How can I be so happy when I'm doing this job? I said, yeah, explain that to me. And he just talked about how he's a Christian and he's just glad that he has a job and he's got a joy from the Lord. And I thought, man, if that guy doing that job can be that happy, I have no excuse. So I want to challenge you. Here's my big ask. I want to challenge you to be here the next 3 weeks. Just come and let's explore this topic of happiness. Let's explore this challenge together. And let's see if together we cannot more reflect the words of the Apostle Paul when he says, rejoice in the Lord always. Be happy. Be blessed in the Lord always. Now, many of you here this morning are new to the church, and we are so glad that you're here. And we put together a video because we want you to see what kind of church we are. This last year, from last kickoff day, has been a flurry of activity. It's been a good year. But we just put together this video to show you some highlights of what has gone on here in our church and through our church since the last kickoff day. And I think that you'll be encouraged. I think that you will agree that God is doing some great things in this place. And if you are new to our church, if you have started coming in the last few weeks or the last few months, we want you to understand what kind of church this is. So let's watch this video together. Let's be encouraged by it, and let's rejoice at what God has done. How can my life be made better if I take a chance and go visit this church? What will it benefit me? So that's why these 3 words that are attached to this: be, belong, become. Your purpose of what you here for. Reflect his image and show the world what he cares for. And I know it's all right, and you know, it's sure and we know the time's running out. Can't wait around, cause calling all the messengers, calling all the messengers, calling all the messengers. I've been a lot of places where the scene ain't pretty. I've seen plenty of hatred, death, and destruction where ignorance kills many. The blind leading the blind, we turning a blind eye. That alone is a crime, we got the power of life. I know that we make mistakes, don't let them keep you away. Mercy, love, and His grace is the reason we move ahead. Speak out, though we never been qualified to do it. I ain't earned it, I was loved into it, I'm brand new, yeah. And I know it's all right, you know, and you know, it's your lie, and we know, the time's running out. Can't wait around, cause calling all the messengers, calling all the messengers, calling all the messengers. about a place where people can be. You know, just come as you are. Like, you don't got to dress up weird. You don't got to put on fancy clothes. You just come as you are with all of your sin and all of your mess, and you'll find people that will accept you. This is a place where you can be with your questions if you're a doubter, where you can just come and just check things out and just be who you are and still be loved and accepted. And then hopefully when a person does that, they'll say, man, this is a place that I can really belong to, and find maybe a new family and have a place where people know them and love them and care about them. But then more importantly, this needs to be a place where people can become. People can become something better than they are, and your life will improve. think we have so many essential pieces in place that we can really start to be the church that I know that we can be, because mostly of you all and how loving and awesome and generous you are. all of these things just work together to help us become a place that people say, I rejoiced with those who said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord.